Hey, if you're a new nurse, you have to be very careful what nurse residency that you select and even what hospital that you select to start. And yes, you do have a choice. So let's get into it. What is a nurse residency program? In this video, I'm going to break down nurse residency programs, what to look for, what not to look for, and what happens when there is no residency program. And it's not because you're not good enough, but 1 in 5 nurses will leave the profession within the first year. And I don't want you to be one of those statistics. So my name is Dr. Farah Laurent. I've helped over 200 new graduate nurses like yourself get into nurse residency programs that are super competitive. I'm talking places in Stanford and New York City, right? And getting into these residency programs and getting into programs and units like the ICU, the emergency department, labor and delivery, NICU, psych, you name it. I've helped new nurses get there, and not only get there, but getting into good programs where they're supported and where they thrive and they're super excited to start their nursing journey. And that's what I want for you. And also making those money moves, getting paid 6 figures, over $100,000, because you also deserve to negotiate your salary and make more. And also, I've been featured all over media. My work has made it to the Jennifer Hudson show. She featured me for the work that I do with new graduate nurses. So let's get into it. Number 1, the general nurse residency program. What does that mean? There are nurse residency programs that hospitals have that just take all the new nurses into one cohort, and they're typically for about a year long, sometimes for 6 months, but it's a year-long program. They put you all in the same cohort regardless of what your interests are. Sometimes they will ask you to list your interest from 1 to 3. So you might say, hey, my number 1 choice is ICU, my second is emergency, and my third is telemetry. You have to be strategic also in how you do that. So once you get into that program, I guess basically they will look at your skills, your strengths, the skill set, and put you in the place that they think is best suited for you or where the hospital needs more nurses. But of course, you can articulate where your preferences are and they can try to match you to that. Some of you may not know which specialty you want to go into, and that's okay. You can potentially start in telemetry or perhaps Med-Surg until you really get to know where you want to be. But they will help you with that in a general nurse residency program. And then number 2, there are nurse residency programs that are unit specific or specialty specific, meaning if I want to be an ICU nurse, there might be a nurse residency program specifically just for ICU nurses. And then when you go into that cohort, you're going to be with other nurses who will also be in the ICU with you. And that's all you're going to focus on is being an ICU nurse. There are nursing residency that cover ICU, the ED, the operating room, NICU, psych. All of them really are available, but not all hospitals have the capacity to provide those nurse residency programs. That's why you have to do your research and see if they have them. But it's a little bit more specific and specialized, so it'll help you better transition to those units. And then if you are watching and you're thinking, man, I don't know what I want, I'm not really sure how to get into the nurse residency programs, you need to come to my next webinar. I have these free weekly webinars. You can sign up with the link below. And in these webinars, I'll teach you my frameworks, my strategies. You'll have the opportunity to ask me questions and get some clarity and how to know how to show up to your next interview with more confidence so that you can get hired faster. And my nurses that I train are getting hired in less than 90 days, making 6 figures and getting what they want. In fact, last week, 2 of my nurses, just for coming to the webinar, landed a pediatric ICU position and a labor and delivery position. Not even working with me directly in my coaching program, because I have a group coaching program that is very exclusive. I only allow a certain amount of new grads in it, and there's an application process. They didn't even come to that and I meet with them weekly. They just came to my webinar, and those are the transformation and the results that they have gotten. So sign up now. Seats are limited. You don't want to miss the next webinar. The link is below. And also subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed. I have tons of content for you as a new nurse. So what if there is no residency program? This is number 3. No residency program, no problem. If, let's say, you live in an area that doesn't have a nurse residency program and there's a hospital that you've been eyeing that you really like, great. I recommend going to a teaching hospital. So you might want to look at teaching hospitals and perhaps hospitals that are magnet certified. So magnet means they attract nurses, and they have to go through extensive, rigorous application processes to get deemed a magnet hospital. So that means they have the resources to help you in your transition and educate you properly. So you have to ask those questions. So it doesn't mean that it's an automatic red flag, because you know what? Nurse residency programs are expensive to run. They take a lot of staff to run them. And they typically have a nurse residency coordinator. So a lot goes into it. And sometimes hospitals just don't have the time or money to have that structure there. So that's why it's so important. If you do find a nurse residency program that you really like, it's your benefit to go into that nurse residency, because there aren't many out there. So what does onboarding look like? What does orientation look like? Those are questions that you will have to ask in your interview. Ask how long the orientation is, how long the didactic classroom part is, where you're sitting, learning, and how long the clinical preceptorship is when you're teamed up with the preceptor. And then ask them when you will be alone, independently. And sometimes they'll have like a buddy system, or they'll team you up with somebody, or they'll try to put you on the same shift as your preceptor, so it could be a resource person for you. If the hospital is struggling to answer any of your questions and they can't seem to clearly lay out the orientation process, or they say, oh, it just varies, and they're not giving you concrete answers about the orientation, ding, 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 that's a red flag. Another red flag is if they're trying to give you the offer in the middle of the interview before even getting to know you, and they're like, hey, you have to make a decision now, or there's a bonus, and this is the bonus, but you got to make the decision right now. If they're pressuring you to make a decision and giving you the offer, and it seems down in your gut, it seems off or it seems wrong, and they're not explaining benefits and all these different things, then it's probably a red flag, and you need to take a look. And at that point, I would ask them, hey, what is your turnover rate? And if they can't answer that, I would start doing some research outside of there, and do not accept the offer. Do more research and talk to other nurses who work there, and also ask to tour the facility, because you will get a good vibe of what the place looks like. And then number 4, why do nurse residency programs matter? So the reason that they were created is because it's proven that when nurses are in a residency program with other nurses, a structured program that delivers structured curriculum, education, and structured preceptorship, and their preceptors are actually trained to be a preceptor, your experience from nursing school and getting into your first job is a much smoother transition, and we call it transition to practice. And these programs were developed to help you succeed, be more successful, help you with critical thinking, prioritization, and just be a support in your transition so you don't feel overwhelmed and that you don't quit. And then it's a sense of community and belonging because you are in a cohort starting together, and you have specific educators that are not only addressing your psychomotor skills, but they're also talking about how you feel, and other things like soft skills, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with a team, and those types of things that'll help you be successful in nursing. And then number 5, what to look for in a nurse residency program. So number 1, look to see if they're accredited. If they're not accredited, it's because, again, it's another rigorous process. But if they are accredited by the American Credentialing Center, that is a huge plus. That means that this program is superb and you want to get into that program. Traditionally, They're 1 year long, but some programs can be 6 months and 3 months. 3 months is a little, I would recommend at least a year program. And then find out what's in the program, what to look for. And then find out if their preceptors actually get a training program and if they get some type of certification for that preceptor program. Find out about retention rates, and then just find out what support looks like after orientation. Now that you know what to look for in nurse residency programs, wonderful. But the next step is you actually have to be ready to interview if you have an interview to get into a nurse residency program, because they can be competitive. So some are panel interviews and some are one-on-one interviews that have like a first phase and a second phase. So you definitely want to be ready for that interview, because getting into the right program starts with how you perform in the interview. So if you want to position yourself for success and be the ideal client that gets the offer and gets hired in less than 90 days in these nurse residency programs, I would invite you to check my next video on how I break down the 5 essential interview tips that'll help you stand out, get hired faster, and get into these nurse residency programs that you really want. So watch the next video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, and check the link below for the next webinar, the New Nurse to Dream Role webinar, where I teach you all my frameworks and strategies on how to get hired faster. My name is Dr. Farah Laurent, and I'll see you in the next video.